The two comments that I would make is, number one, is that while we may have more students that need additional support in order to be successful, I think as the superintendent, you want me to be very clear that there is no excuse. I don't care if a child comes from a family that may not have as much resource as another family. I don't care if they live on this side of town or another side of town. I don't care if they don't speak English as their primary language at home. We have to be in the business of accepting no excuses for our young people not meeting with success. We can understand it, but I just want to, as the superintendent of schools, I just want everybody to understand no excuse for students in Bristol Warren not reaching the highest level of academic performance. It is what we would expect of our children, and it is what we should expect of all the children that we serve, right? Having said that, all of these things are factors that mean that in the conversation with the JFC, we need to talk and we need to make sure that everyone knows about the interventions that we're going to put in place that would extend instructional time, extend summer opportunities for students so that we are able to mitigate some of the things that historically have been difficult to overcome. We believe that we are a district that can mitigate those and make sure that we put all of our students on a firm academic setting. So that's what we want to do, right? So I gotta say, no retreat. We're going forward, regardless of maybe students don't come from a perfect environment. Okay, there are a lot of our kids that don't come from a perfect environment, that have scored perfect on that assessment, that are scoring at high levels, and I just want everyone in the community to know that we're not going to accept underperformance on the part of any of our kiddos.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. Oh, Mr. Ramos.
So I have a quick question, and then what might be a little bit soapboxy at the end. But when we talk about being top 5 and 5, do we specifically mean being a top 5 district in Rhode Island with respect to performance on RICAS scores?
With performance on RICAS scores, performance on SAT scores, I would put in NAEP in there. Any of the other indices or metrics that would be used to determine school effectiveness, I would say yes, with one caveat. I believe student performance on any of these assessments is not the focus, but is a natural byproduct of high quality teaching and learning that occurs in all of our classrooms every single day. So I don't want people to teach to the test. I want high quality teaching and learning. I think our team wants high quality teaching and learning, and as a natural byproduct of high quality teaching and learning occurring in every classroom every day, you'll see the results on these assessments where we want them to be.
Well, what you just said is a great segue to what was maybe my point would maybe be less soapboxy now. And, you know, I get very, my blood pressure raises when we have, whether it's a meeting like this or it's the media firestorm that occurs whenever test scores come out, and the test scores are used as a proxy for the ranking of schools, whether schools whether it's the students in the schools are learning or not, whether the teaching and learning that is happening in schools is necessarily good. And I hear the discussion that we've had tonight has, I think, for the most part, been really focused on the right things, which is, you know, what we want to do is know where we need to improve in order to make sure that every student is able to succeed. And what I really struggle with is linking whatever, sort of this external score that in many ways, although perhaps, all of you who are dealing with this every day have a better understanding of it, is just data that goes in and numbers that come back out that we don't have any control over. Two, we recognize in a number of places throughout the presentation tonight that it's a snapshot in time, and it's only one way of measuring student achievement, right? And it takes on this outsized importance in the way in which outsiders view school districts and schools, but I think it also ends up taking on an outsized importance in the way that we sometimes think about ourselves, because we almost can't help ourselves when we're being pressured from a lot of different places. So when we talk about, the word byproduct is one that I think of all the time. We almost shouldn't even have to focus on the test at all, right? We almost shouldn't have to look at examples of what a 4 really looks like, or to see example problems or published problems to figure out what we need to be doing. If we're designing our schools, our curriculum, our teaching and learning processes so that kids are learning what we understand they need to learn to be successful in the world, then the test is an afterthought, and the results speak for themselves, with one, I think, major caveat. And it's something that is probably the greatest underlying concern that I have. And I think when we talk about measuring ourselves on the basis of these metrics that are sort of universally recognized is a shortcoming and a flaw. Because I agree 100% that there are no excuses that every single student, no matter their background, is capable of high achievement and learning what we expect them to learn and what they need to learn to be successful in the world. Standardized assessments have historically been studied to be imperfect measures that have real equity concerns in the way in which results flow from them, and have, beyond just sort of that equity concern, which is a real problem, they're a measure that just doesn't work for everybody. And when I hear Ms. Almeida talking about all the other stuff that we look at, I would hope that we can talk about those other types of measurements and be evaluating students who maybe are struggling standardized testing for whatever reason, and it may not even be because they don't know the stuff, it's because of whatever happened that day. Or they struggled through the test that day because they had a cold, right? And saying, this isn't reflective of who we are, and pushing back against the tyranny of the test. And when I say that, tyranny of the test has been used as a phrase to talk about teaching to the test, and that's not what I'm talking about. Tyranny of the test that I'm talking about is that these metrics that come from these examinations are they become the lens through which things get looked at, and it just doesn't tell, even though we recognize internally that it isn't the whole picture, it becomes the whole picture in terms of the way that things are told.
So, can I just say, I think, even though you said you were on your soapbox, I actually agree with you, right? What we do not want is to limit our view of ourselves based on one moment in time, one assessment. I tell my daughters, did you do your best? If you did your best, whatever happened, whatever the results, I think we're fine with. I will mention to you that today I reviewed 7th grade artwork based on Van Gogh's style of paint and what he does in the background. Now, I'm not an art person. I've got a daughter that's an art person, and she would have been ecstatic. But can I just tell you, I looked at maybe 8 to 10 different pieces of artwork that our young people created of, in a natural setting outside of the building where they painted, you know, different birds in the background. And can I just tell you, I felt as good about their work as I do when I look at test scores, right? We have to judge young people in the totality of the work that they do. And I think the school committee, what you're gonna want from me moving forward is what are those goals and how we judge ourselves. And so being top 5 and 5 is not just, oh, well, top 5 on RICAS or SAT scores, but how are we doing with young people and graduating in their pathways, and how many of them are starting their own businesses or things like this. I think we have a great opportunity to really reimagine how we look at schools and look at it in a much more holistic sense. But having said that, we cannot escape the fact that we do have to make sure that you said it, I call it a natural byproduct, right? And I think you came up with a different term, like an afterthought. Either way, natural byproduct, afterthought, it's something that our schools and our students will face. I would love to take the air out of the balloon and not have people stressed over tests. It's a test, it's one day, it's a couple of days, they do it, and let's move on, because we've got more learning to take place for the rest of the year.
Yeah, right. And I think in addition to that, 100% on board with every word that just came out of your mouth. And would add that I think in addition to not letting it color or be the way in which we look at ourselves, that it can also be, I think we can be a school district if we want to be, that pushes back on the external perceptions that come from it as well. You know, I think that it's a flaw in the way in which the public views education nationally, perhaps internationally, and we can be an agent of change in terms of trying to get the community at large to understand where the context should be for this sort of stuff.
Thank you. Mr. Cabral?
In the area of student success, I think one thing is missing, and in my opinion, this is the most important thing, and that is parental involvement. You're just talking about yourself as to how you support your children, and I think that that's the biggest problem in this whole program. I think we are lacking in several schools, in several areas with parental involvement. The other thing is, if you gave me back all of the students whose parents send them to private schools, and they took our scores, I could compete with anyone. I think the problem being is that you've just taken the cream of the crop right off the top, and now what have you done to your average? You drew over your average down. If you bring them back to me, then I can raise the average. I think it's very, very important that we do that. The second thing is, I have another request for you, Diane, and that is, could you tell me the percentage of students that go to private schools in Bristol Warren and the percentage of students that go to private schools in Barrington? Thank you.
Right, so we'll get that information for you, but the one thing I would mention, that it is our job, it is the school system's job to make parents aware of the benefits of attending Bristol Warren Regional School District and versus sending their kid to a private school. I think parents have the right to make educational decisions for their children. We certainly agree with that. But I think part of this is about us being competitive and showing how our students perform while they're with us in a host of areas, not just on assessments, but also in the arts, and athletically, in terms of other things for creativity. I think if we show that, I think in some cases what we'll do is we'll help more people make the decision to keep their kids with us.
Yes, I understand that. I am a product of public schools. My family is a product of public schools. My wife is a product of private schools. We send all 6 of our granddaughters to this school right here. I believe in this system. I believe in the whole district, And I believe that, and this is a quote that I've made many, many times, Bristol Warren can give anyone a quality education, a top-notch education. It's out there, you just have to go and get it. If you don't want to get it, well, that's your problem. But right here, in this district here, we do give a quality education if a student really wants to get it.
And we just need to make sure that my pastor used to have the saying, put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everyone can get to them. Our job is to make sure that every kid can get to that quality education you mentioned.
Anyone else?
I just have one other quick, I'm afraid that the statements or the questions that I was raising might have been misinterpreted. I in no way was saying that my points that I was bringing were an excuse.
No.
I just want to make sure that I was like,
I
I'm
don't
not
think-
saying that's
I don't
why.
think any-
Okay.
I don't think
was
any
like,
school
"Ooh."
I don't think that any school committee member believes in excuses. I think we have conversations. We know that there are some students that need additional support, which means we need more staffing, we need special strategies or activities or after school or summer. So I think we recognize that, and I think this is the place to have that honest, frank conversation. But it's also important that we all collectively let the community know that we're not going to accept that whatever a student may come to school with is going to be something that prevents them from learning at high levels.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Bento?
I feel like I have to talk now as well. So, I hate standardized tests personally. I hate taking them. When I was young, hated them. Stressed out. And I mean, I made my comments earlier, but one of the other things I was looking at is once we do sit down and start creating our own goals, we would certainly address that piece to it because there's so much other great stuff that's being taught out there. And yeah, all right, you have to dedicate so much time to this standardized test. But I would also say, having said all that, there are certainly some things we can benefit from it. And this is where I talked about, where Adam was going with that delta, where I was going with the variables, if we're going to do some statistical analysis. But if we can create that baseline, we can certainly, just us looking at this, we keep seeing every year that there's a transitional issue between elementary to middle school to high school. So there are certain things I can see where it's beneficial. Where it's going to be interesting with us in the future is really how much do we want to dedicate to it, and then to superintendent how we utilize it. But I'll stand by what I said earlier. But I'm with you as far as I'm not really. I hate standardized tests personally, and I'll stop there.
Anyone else have any more comments or questions? So I just want to thank Mary and Christine and Diane and Dr. Rice.
Great job, team.
Super comprehensive, a lot of information. Thank you so much for all the time you put into that. And then we're moving to public comment, but I don't think we have any. So we will now move past public comment to adjournment.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.